Service workers share the most disturbing homes ever. Story 1. My dad used to do winter renovation work, the kind where you roll up to a house, already bracing yourself, because cold weather brings out the weirdest emergencies. Frozen pipes, busted heaters, desperate calls at 7 a.m. He had a top 3 list of nightmare houses he'd tell, like war stories, and number 1, no contest, was what he always called the piss house. Real subtle branding there. He said the smell hit him before he even got out of the truck. Just opened the door and boom, like a wall of ammonia, punched him straight in the sinuses. Man literally snapped 2 cigarette filters in half, shoved them up his nose, slapped on an N95 like he was entering Chernobyl, and marched in anyway because, bills don't pay themselves. That blue-collar optimism right there, maybe it's not that bad. Spoiler alert, it was that bad. First step inside, the carpet went squish. Not damp, not musty, full-on swamp mode. Soaked all the way through to the subfloor. Years of animal urine just marinating in there, eating through wood like acid. He told me the original hardwood underneath looked like it had some kind of disease. Black blotches everywhere, warped and stained beyond salvation. The whole place had these narrow little goat trails carved through mountains of trash and boxes, all of them soaked, all of them reeking. Cats and dogs running loose with dirty paws. Cockroaches bold enough to stroll around in broad daylight like they paid rent. He lasted maybe 10 minutes, long enough to realize this wasn't a renovation job. It was a public health situation. Called animal control, backed out, and never looked back. Story 2. I went to a house a few weeks back to swap out some drain lines under a sink. Simple job, should have been in and out. I kneeled down, opened the cabinet, and it was like I triggered a horror movie trap. Roaches, dozens of them, then more. Had to be close to 100 just scattering in every direction like the cabinet was their emergency exit drill. I jumped back so fast I almost clocked my head on the counter. Real professional moment right there. And that's when you make the call. I stood up, wiped my hands on my jeans, and told them straight, I can't do the work until the roach problem is handled. Not being dramatic, just basic safety and sanitation. You start digging into pipes in that environment, you're basically volunteering to bring the infestation home with you as a souvenir. Hard pass. What threw me, though, was their reaction. They weren't defensive, they weren't embarrassed. They looked genuinely confused, like I'd pointed out something abstract, not a swarm of insects living under their sink. They kept asking why it mattered, what they were supposed to do about it. Like this had been normal for so long they'd stopped seeing it as a problem. That's the part that sticks with you. People adapt to their environment, even when it's bad. Gradually, quietly, until the unacceptable becomes routine. Not always laziness. Sometimes it's poverty, sometimes mental health, sometimes just not knowing where to start. You leave those houses, shaking your head, cracking jokes to your coworkers later. Yeah, the roaches had a better plumbing system than the humans, but deep down you're thinking the same thing every time. Once something becomes normal to you, it's really hard to recognize how far things have slipped. Story 3. I used to have a job measuring windows, which sounds harmless enough until you realize it means walking into a random cross-section of humanity every single day. You see everything. Clutter, chaos, dust bunnies the size of small mammals. But one house in particular permanently changed my relationship with socks. Place was the full combo meal, messy, cluttered, and dirty, with more dogs and cats roaming around than I could count. I'm talking fur tumbleweeds drifting across the floor like it's the Wild West. The smell hit me before I even finished knocking, and my brain immediately started negotiating hazard pay that I knew I wasn't getting. Then the owner hits me with the classic line, "Would you mind taking off your shoes?" Normally, I'm polite. Customer service voice, smile, no problem. But this time my survival instincts were screaming, "Do not do it, soldier." Still, professionalism won. I slipped off my shoes, trying not to think too hard about what my socks were about to experience. First step inside, splash, just froze there, soul leaving my body in slow motion. Looked down, and yep, straight into a puddle of urine. Could have been dog, cat, kid, honestly didn't matter at that point. My brain just went blank, except for one thought. These socks are deceased. I finished the job, kept my face neutral like a trained hostage negotiator, and the second I got back to the truck, those socks went straight into the trash. No memorial service. Closed casket. Ever since then, I carry those little disposable shoe covers everywhere like they're sacred equipment. People think it's about being neat. Nah, it's about Trauma prevention. Story 4. I used to groom special needs pets in people's homes, and most days it was wholesome chaos. Old dogs with bad hips, anxious cats, owners hovering like nervous parents. But every now and then, you'd walk into a situation that made you question every life choice that led you there. This one still lives rent-free in my head. I show up to this co-worker's place, someone I had to see every single weekday, same office, same break room, same awkward small talk about spreadsheets. And they lead me to the bathroom to wash their dog. Door opens, and I just stop. The entire floor had, no joke, about 3 inches of cat litter covering it. Not fresh litter, not clean. We're talking well-used, seen some things. Probably qualified for archaeological study litter. The smell hit me like a brick wrapped in regret. Every instinct in my body was screaming, abort mission, turn around, fake a sudden illness, run for the hills. But then my brain goes, you're gonna have to sit next to this person at work tomorrow. And suddenly, social awkwardness outweighed basic survival instincts. That's adulthood in a nutshell. Doing something mildly traumatic just to avoid tension at the office. So I powered through, bathed the dog while trying not to think about what my shoes were absorbing, finished the cut, smiled like a professional, and got the hell out of there. The second I got home, those clothes went straight into the trash like contaminated evidence. No washing, no second chances, funeral service, closed casket, and yeah, lesson learned. Sometimes professionalism is just suffering quietly, so Monday morning doesn't get weird. Story 5. Man, running an on-site computer repair business sounded cool on paper. Be your own boss, help people, set your own schedule. Reality? It turned into a traveling tour of humanity's weirdest living situations. And after enough of those, I swore I'd never go back. Not worth the money, not worth the therapy bills, definitely not worth the mental images burned into my brain like bad tattoos. One place I walked into was so packed with empty beer cans, you literally had to wade through them. I'm not exaggerating for drama. Knee-deep aluminum. Every step sounded like crunching through a landfill, and I'm standing there holding a laptop thinking, how did it get to this point? Like there had to be a moment, years earlier, where one can hit the floor and someone said, I'll pick it up later, and then later just never showed up. Story of my life with laundry, but thankfully not at industrial scale. Then there was the cat piss house. I could smell it from the driveway. Sharp, sour, hits the back of your throat like ammonia. Guy answers the door, covered in boils and infected sores, skin looking angry, and he's way too friendly. Touchy. Handshake, shoulder pat, another handshake, like he's trying to bond through physical contact. I'm internally screaming, "Sir, please keep your hands to yourself. My immune system is filing a complaint." After the third or fourth grab, I finally pulled the autism card. Truthful, but usually I try to tough it out to be polite. Told him straight up I don't like being touched. He nodded, then did it again 5 minutes later. That's when I mentally checked out. Grabbed the computer, told him I'd fix it back at the shop, and when I returned, I basically sprinted in, plugged everything back together like I was defusing a bomb, and bolted. Told my business partner, yeah, that address is permanently on the deny list. No debate. And honestly, after enough of those experiences, something rewires in your brain. You start washing your hands more, wiping surfaces twice, side-eyeing doorknobs like they're plotting against you. Story 6. I used to deliver furniture and appliances back when stores bragged about hauling away your old junk for free, like it was some heroic public service. Most days it was whatever, creaky recliners, fridges that sounded like helicopters. But the smoker houses? Man, those were a whole different level of reality check. We swapped out this old sofa for a customer, and when we pulled it away from the wall, I legit froze. There was this perfect outline of the couch behind it, like a chalk drawing at a crime scene. Except instead of chalk, it was years of cigarette smoke baked into the paint. The rest of the wall was that sad nicotine yellow, but the spot behind the couch was still bright white, like it had been preserved in amber. It looked almost cartoonish, like something out of a PSA, and for a second, I just stood there thinking, damn, that's not just on the walls, that's in your lungs too. You try not to judge, because everybody's got their coping habits. Life's stressful, bills pile up, nerves get shot, and sometimes people cling to whatever vice keeps them upright. But walking out of that place, clothes smelling like an ashtray, throat scratchy, head pounding. I remember thinking, man, the furniture isn't the only thing getting replaced here someday. Story 7. I was working on a new master bed and bath addition on the second floor of this house years ago. Nice place, tons of natural light pouring down the hallway, everything looking normal, even kind of peaceful. I'm walking back toward the stairs when this framed picture on the wall catches my eye. From the side angle, with the sunlight hitting the glass, I see all these straight intersecting lines across the surface. Real geometric looking. My first thought was, honestly, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe it's an aerial shot of a city skyline or some abstract art. Then I stepped directly in front of it. Nope. Wedding photo, bride and groom, smiling, formal, the whole start of forever vibe. I remember doing a double take because that didn't match what I'd just seen from the side. So I shifted back to that shallow angle again, light skimming across the glass. And there they were. Lines, lots of them. Not scratches, not dust, residue. That's when the realization hit. Slow and uncomfortable. They were using their own wedding photo frame as a surface to cut lines of coke right there in the hallway, like it was just another countertop. I didn't say anything, just kept walking, went back to work. Mind doing that quiet spiral where you start connecting dots you don't really want to connect. Because moments like that remind you how messy people's lives can get beneath the polished surface. You see the house, the renovation, the money being spent, and then you catch this tiny, accidental glimpse of the struggle hiding in plain sight. Story 8. My husband does pest control, and the stuff he comes home talking about sometimes makes me sit there in stunned silence, fork halfway to my mouth, appetite just packing its bags and leaving. People think pests are a punchline. Little gross, little embarrassing, but some of what he sees is straight up heartbreaking. He's told me about babies covered in bedbug bites, tiny arms and legs dotted red like some cruel constellation, and the parent still can't be bothered to do the basic prep work. Just wash the bedding. That's it. Not a PhD thesis, not open heart surgery, throw sheets in a washing machine, but they don't. And the infestation keeps thriving like it pays rent. Beds literally alive, moving, crawling, and folks just living in it for years, like it's background noise. You hear that and your brain short circuits because you want to be angry, but mostly you just feel tired and sad. And the rat situations? Man, he's walked into homes where rats are basically roommates. Not panicked, not screaming, just casual coexistence. Like, yeah, they come out at night, we're used to it. That kind of normalization messes with your head. You start realizing how fast humans can adapt to things that should never be normal, just because survival mode kicks in and you stop expecting better. We joke about it sometimes. Like, well, at least the rats aren't charging rent yet. Story 9. 10 years in home remodeling will age you in dog years, I swear. You walk into enough houses and you start reading them like medical charts. From a professional standpoint, when I see a place that's been neglected, peeling paint, busted trim, mystery stains older than the iPhone, I already know the job's about to get complicated. If the visible stuff looks rough, there's usually a horror movie happening behind the walls. Rot, mold, wiring held together by pure optimism. So yeah, the price goes up because I'm not just fixing what you see, I'm bracing for the plot twist. And weirdly, those same folks are often the most eager to get the work done. They want the change, the fresh start, this time, it'll be different moment. But then the paperwork hits, and suddenly the credit check becomes the final boss battle. It's not malicious, it's just life catching up, missed bills, setbacks, bad luck stacking like Jenga blocks. You start seeing the pattern whether you want to or not. On the personal side, though, that's where it gets heavy. A house really can feel like an extension of the person living in it. The tidy, well-maintained homes usually come with people who seem grounded, organized, steady. The chaotic ones, you can feel the stress before anyone says a word. And when you're there for hours, hammering, measuring, crawling around, you end up talking. Small talk at first, then suddenly you're hearing about divorces, sick parents, job losses, regrets from 10 years ago. You didn't sign up to be a therapist, but there you are, holding a drill in one hand and someone's life story in the other. Thanks for hanging out and listening to these wild stories. If you enjoyed the ride, hit like, subscribe, and stick around, because trust me, the next stories get even crazier. See you soon.